My entitled wife disappeared after a girls' trip. Years later, she showed up at my doorstep with a baby, so I destroyed her life. I used to be happily married to my wife for over 4 years. 4 freaking years! And she left it all behind anyway. We never had any problems in our relationship, but right after we got married, we found out that I can't have kids. My S count was extremely low. That was a very big shock because we had both agreed that we wanted at least 2 kids of our own. It even had me go into depression, from which I luckily recovered. Thanks to therapy, over the 4 years, I tried to get her to agree to other options, one of which was adopting. But she denied everything, insisting that she was fine even without kids. That was surprising and unbelievable, because before marriage, she would always tell me how much she wanted kids. She would literally sit for hours and look at stuff she wanted to buy for her future child. But after that day at the doctor's appointment, she became completely numb to anything baby-related. She would often make offhanded comments about me, insulting my weight and lack of fitness. But when I confronted her, she would deny everything and claim that everything was normal. Her change bothered me at the start because I thought she was forcing herself to accept reality. But as time went on, I forgot about it and moved on. Then came the big moment, her planned trip. We lived in Brighton, which is in Europe, and she wanted to go to America for a trip with her friends. This wasn't the first girls' trip she had gone on, so I was very supportive of her. I even helped her pack and bought her new clothes to wear on the trip. Little did I know, she had a crazy plan cooking inside her head. After dropping her at the airport, I went home and stayed up so I could call her and make sure she was safe when she landed. After 9 hours of drinking coffee to stay awake, I checked that her flight had landed and called her to make sure. The ringtone rang, but she didn't pick up. I tried a few more times and even texted her about it, but still, there was no reply. Thinking she was tired and had gone to sleep at the hotel, I also tucked myself into the bed. But since I was still extremely worried about her well-being, I kept waking up and checking my phone for updates. In the morning, I noticed that she still hadn't called back or replied to my texts. After trying for a few more minutes, I called her sister to ask if she had talked to my wife. She hadn't, so I decided to call my wife's friends, who were supposed to be on the trip with her. That might sound very invasive, but I genuinely thought it was an emergency. For the longest time, I have had a fear of my plane crashing into the water, and I didn't want my wife to go through that horrible fate. But when I called her friends, guess where they were at? They were 2 blocks away, having morning tea at a cafe. I thought it was a silly prank and I was being messed with. But no, my wife had truly disappeared and abandoned me. I was distraught and completely went off the rail. I got really drunk and showed up at her parents' house claiming that they were hiding her. My mother-in-law was really kind and understanding of my situation, however. She let me in her home and comforted me for days. I can't remember how many times I cried on her shoulder. Eventually, I accepted reality and began working on moving on. It took me a long time. Even with the support of my family and friends, I still missed my wife a lot. I kept thinking that she hadn't abandoned me, and maybe she had suffered a terrible fate and was waiting for me to rescue her. I had to go to therapy for 2 long years before I stopped having nightmares about her being lost in a forest, but I didn't give up and did in fact move on. I was going on golf trips with my friends again, going to pubs with them and getting absolutely smashed, joining the gym, and finally working on my fitness level. I even got a promotion at my company. I thought that my life, which had stopped in time, was finally moving again, and I was happy. But of course my wife had to ruin that as well. A little less than 4 years after she disappeared, I saw my wife standing at my door with a baby in her arms. I thought that I was dreaming again, and asked, "Is that really you?" She excitedly said yes and asked if she could come in, but I refused and told her to keep standing. I didn't know what was going on, but I wasn't going to be deceived again. "Why did you come back?" I asked her, and her reply enraged me more than anything. "I know that you were angry, but let me explain. I did this for us and our future. I was really unhappy in our marriage and needed a way out. I am sorry for what I did to you, but it had to be done. I wanted a child, and you couldn't give that to me. And I thought that running away from you and having a child with someone else would be the only solution. But once I had him, I realized that I wanted to come back to you. You were still the one who I loved in my heart. So here I am. I want to raise this child, our child, together with you, and spend the rest of our married life happily." I took a moment to process her words, and then just started laughing. This woman was crazy if she thought that she was justified in what she did. I calmly told her, "Listen, you and I are done. You betrayed me and left me. Our relationship ended that day, and I have moved on. I don't know that child and probably never will. So just leave and go back to where you came from. That was a pretty good way to end things off, in my opinion. But she didn't like it and began yelling at me as if her earlier words were nothing but a rehearsed script. What? Are you crazy? I am saying that I'm ready to spend my life with you. So why are you turning me away? You do realize that I could have divorced you and taken this house along with half your money. Or I could have taken some expensive things with me when I disappeared. But I didn't do any of it. And still, you think I don't deserve a second chance? Think again, or otherwise you will deeply regret it. I laughed at her once more and explained that if she wanted to be a criminal, she was welcome to do so. I was actually glad that my heart wasn't moved by her words. I was still mad at her, but could control my anger perfectly, meaning that I had truly moved on. I called her crazy and shut the door in her face, deciding to never see her again. But after one day, I had a change of mind. I came to the realization that she wasn't being punished for her actions, and I needed to change that. I didn't deserve what she did to me, and I wanted some payback. I found her whereabouts and found out that she had gone to her parents' house. I had actually built a really nice relationship with them during these years, but I was extremely disappointed that they would forgive her and take her back in. I get it, they are her parents and can't just turn her away, but I still sent a text to her mother saying how disheartened I was by her actions. Then, I decided to find out what happened. I couldn't find out anything about the baby's father, except that he was nowhere near involved anymore. And she was planning on getting a job to pay for her expenses. I found out what company she had applied for, and one of them was my own. First, I rejected her application for my company. Then, I sent them all a very long email about how she was manipulative, deceitful, and unloyal, and didn't deserve to be hired. I had actually worked really hard and rose to an executive position in my company, so my word held a lot of weight. Just as I had expected, she was rejected from every single job that she applied for. Now, she has no income and probably doesn't even have enough money to leave the city. Her parents aren't that well off. They can't afford to keep her in their house for much longer, especially with the baby in the picture. In fact, I've already got several texts and voicemails from them. Some are apologizing about them taking their daughter back in, but others are asking me for some money, sympathy, and support. Obviously, I'm ignoring everything. I also texted my wife's friends telling them to not support her in any way. They are all on my side because they were also blindsided by her actions of 4 years ago. So she will have no choice but to raise a child all on her own while struggling to find food on the street. My satisfaction levels are off the roof, and I'm going to have the best sleep of my life.